So the day has finally come where I'm ready to replace the roof on my house here. And in addition to the shingles, I'm going to be stripping all the sheathing off and replacing the whole wooden roof deck with new OSB. So there's a lot to do. Let's go take a look first at why I have to do that, the issues with this roof, and then I'll show you some of the materials I'm going to use, and we'll talk about costs and permitting and things as well throughout the video. I almost forgot to mention, just like my other videos, don't take this as a how-to video. This is just me documenting my process as a DIY homeowner trying to save some money. As far as roofing goes, there's a bunch of professional roofing channels on YouTube that have some great how-to videos. I recommend Veteran Construction. I've learned a ton by watching that channel. So the big issue with this roof is lack of airflow or ventilation under the sheathing. You can see up at the top there, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 vents up at the ridge for this entire roof. And honestly, the one on the left there is in the garage and it's not doing anything. And then you can see I've got some vents in the soffit here, but they're only maybe every 8 to 10 feet. And I'm not sure how big the opening is actually under the vinyl soffit. So let me go inside and I'll show you what that lack of venting actually does to the back side of the roof. This area here is probably the worst of it. You can see all this black mold on the back side of the sheathing. And you know, some people would just replace the spots where there's mold, but it's really kind of everywhere, and this plywood is all very thin and very flimsy. So we're going to put some 1/2 inch on this and make it really solid. What you're going to see is, instead of running these vents that are not enough, I'm going to cut in a continuous ridge vent across the top of this roof, very much like I did on the shop back there, which you can kind of see across the top. If you look really closely, there's a ridge vent across the top. The other thing on this roof is I don't really like any of the detail on the perforations. So, you know, you've got sealer all around here where you really shouldn't need it. What you can also see is there are nail holes across the bottom of this flashing, and there really don't need to be, because this isn't a hurricane zone or anything like that where you would need to like use extra nailing on these. So the nails should be under the shingles, and then you wouldn't need to have any of this additional sealer here. Same thing over here on these vents. You know, they put nails in the bottom, and all you're really doing by putting nails where the shingles aren't covered, wherever you have that sealer, it's going to crack eventually, and then you've left a spot for water to get in there. You'll see the same thing on pretty much every perforation in this roof. So I'll end up fixing all of that. So let's take a look at some of the materials that we're going to put on this roof. I ordered 75 sheets of 1/2 inch OSB. That was awesome. Home Depot had like this off-road looking forklift, and they were able to get it into the shop here for me. And then I have, what I ordered were Atlas shingles, and so I went ahead and bought all Atlas underlayment products. So I've got quite a few rolls of their snow and ice shield here, which is required in Michigan by code. And I've got their synthetic underlayment as well. And then they recommend that this underlayment goes down with cap nails, which are these things here. So I've got some nails there and caps, and I treated myself to this nice Stinger cap nailer that you're going to see us use. And this is my drip edge here, and I just bought that color. I didn't want to get too picky about the color of the drip edge, but I bought 210 feet of that. So out front, you can see I also rented this dumpster here, $300 for a week rental. Hopefully that's enough. And then I also got some plywood H-clips, and you'll see how those go on when we're up on the roof. And then I've got some 8D nails to nail the sheathing down. And then I did buy some new flashing for my furnace vent pipe. And what I don't have yet, I don't have the shingles, but I also don't have the plumbing vent flashings either, because they didn't have those in stock. So we've got a little bit more rain in the forecast here. As soon as that lets up, I've got a bunch of friends coming over and we'll get started. I think in the meantime, I'm going to take this trailer, this dumpster, and move it around to the back of the house, because we're going to start back there. All right, so end of day one here. We got the whole roof stripped, so I'm really happy about that. The dumpster's just about full with all the shingles. And then we got one row. We got our first row of OSB on here. And the first row took us a while because we took our time and we put these smart baffle, attic baffles in. I'll show you those on the ground later on. Put those in with our cap nailer. But once that first row is done, I'm hoping the rest of the sheeting should go pretty quickly. So tomorrow, when I have some more help, we'll get started on the front, do that first row. And really, once I have some help with the first row, I can do the rest of the sheeting myself during the week if I need to. We started marking all our soft spots, and then there were just so many that we just now assume that they're all bad, and we try to walk where the rafter tails are. This decking is, I mean, it's terrible. You can pull it right up. Once the shingles are off, you can pull it right up with one person by yourself. And then when you get down here and you walk on this new decking, it's like night and day. It's just so much more solid. Feels really good to walk on a solid roof finally. So we're getting ready to close this up here, and I just wanted to show the reason for these attic baffles is because when you blow this insulation in here, the way they did before without these baffles, you get insulation blown all into your soffit area, and you get wind coming up and washing the insulation out from the edge of the wall. So it reduces your coverage. And you can see we've got that unblocked now, but you know, the insulation plugs up your intake vent in your soffit and reduces your airflow. So that time lapse you just watched took us to the end of day 3. So after the 3rd day, I've got this whole thing sheeted. And everybody working on this with me, you know, we're all just people that work office jobs. So we're pretty worn out and sore right now. I did email the township some pictures of this to see if they wanted to come out and inspect it. Part of the permit process is what they call an open deck inspection. It's one of 2 inspections. They want to do an open deck and they want to do a final inspection on this roof. But since I replaced all the plywood, I gave them some pictures of this, and I made sure to show them the H clips in here. So when you use 1/2 inch plywood, 1/2 inch or less, you have to use those H clips if you're 2 feet on center, which is what these trusses are spaced out as. And they just give you kind of some extra rigidity when you're stepping in that area. Both pieces move together. But they liked my pictures, and they didn't even want to come out and see the roof deck in person, so we can consider that inspection passed and move on from here. So let me show you what's going on in the back here and why I haven't put my underlayment on yet. I just ripped the gutters off. I ripped most of the soffit trim off and the fascia trim. So what you can see is that even though there's like a big, you know, perforated square here where it should be venting, under that square are just these little holes. That one's actually one of the bigger ones. Some of them are really small. And then the other thing that's going on, when we were putting the decking on the roof, you could see how this overhang was framed out. And what you'll notice, if you can see in there, is that the rafter tail here, the rafter tail stops short of, or the truss tail stops short of the fascia. So the fascia board is actually not tied into this truss tail, and they've just got it framed out further with some other framing. Not to mention this 1x fascia board. It's just really old and it's not attached very well. So what I'm going to do is, you can see we overhung that 1x just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and put a 2x, probably a 2x8 that I ripped down up here instead of this 1x, and then I'm going to be able to tie the OSB into that with some nails from the top before my drip edge goes on. Alright, so I've got the 2x8 fascia boards all up there. I'm really happy with how this turned out. As you can see, it did suck the plywood down flush, so I was able to use that new fascia board to kind of level out some of the inconsistencies in the plane of the trusses. So what you can see is now I was able to nail in here, nail the edges of all this plywood down to that solid fascia board. Got a really good connection there now, and now I'm finally ready to nail my drip edge in, get my snow and ice shield on, and get the rest of the underlayment started to dry this roof in. So you can see I got the underlayment on the roof, and I got the shingles delivered today. Pretty excited about that. Let me come up here, show you what I did for the underlayment. I did not take any video of doing this. I don't think the internet really benefits from seeing me put underlayment on, but you can see, like, code says that the snow and ice shield has to go 2 feet inside the wall of the house. So like over the porch, I actually had to do 3 rows, and then where the overhang is longer than a foot, I had to do 2. And then on the eaves, with the 1 foot overhangs, I just did one row up the eaves, and then on the back side, because it's a 2 foot overhang on the back, I had to do 2 rows. And then I was really happy with this synthetic underlayment, and I used my cap nailer on it, as you can see. So it seems really solid. They say you can keep this on the roof for 60 days, and maybe that's what the 60 means. Without covering it, it's like UV resistant for 60 days. But luckily, it's only been a couple days, and my shingles are here. So I got my drip edge on the eaves before I started putting, before I put the snow and ice shield on, and then code around here is that goes on first, then snow and ice shield, and then your rake edge, drip edge actually goes on top of the snow and ice shield. So I've got to put the rake edge trim on, drip edge on, and then I will get started with my starter shingles on the bottom row there. Well, it keeps raining on and off, so you can see I've got the first row of shingles down. I do have I've got the starter shingles under there, but that part behind me, it's kind of weird. I ended up starting on the opposite side of the roof than I would kind of want to. And I'm gonna have to figure out how to make the rows line up in such a way where it doesn't end up looking weird when I get to that kind of step in the roof. So I was doing some planning earlier around that. But waiting to see if this roof is going to dry enough to the point where I'm comfortable putting some more shingles on today. But in the meantime, I figured I'd do some talking. I'll talk a little bit about this Atlas shingle that I decided to go with. First thing, I actually did price out a metal roof for this house. Since it's a super easy house to do a roof on, I felt like it would be not that hard to do a metal roof. So I priced out metal, and I got some sticker shock. I got a quote of $8,700 for, that's all include, that's the metal, all the trim, the screws, the clips, everything I would need to do the roof. I can't remember if that included underlayment or not, but I think it might have. And then that was for 26 gauge, and I was really worried about oil canning. If you look into metal roofs, it's kind of the waviness, especially because I was going to do it myself, and I don't trust myself to be a great installer. And I also didn't want striations in the metal to prevent the oil canning. I just don't like the way those look. So if I was going to do it, I really wanted a flat panel, and I wanted to go with 24 gauge to kind of give myself a little more leeway on the install and still, not have something with that oil canning effect. And the quote on the 24 gauge was $10,600. Keep in mind, this is in, that was back in September 2021. And I think, I know that metal fluctuates all the time. And I think it's pretty high right now. But compared to doing this with asphalt shingles, I'm, all in shingles, drip edge, ridge cap, ridge vent, starters, nails. I'm all in with a really, really nice shingle that I'll show you in a second here for about $4,500. That doesn't include the roof deck. The roof deck was about $1,000 in OSB. So, you're talking more than double the price, and I know it's supposed to last twice as long, but I think that if I get 30 years out of the roof that I'm putting on this house, I'll be long gone by then. And it's just not worth the extra $5,000 to me right now, to be honest. So with that being said, let me show you these shingles that I'm really happy about. So these are the Atlas StormMaster Shake shingles, and I decided to go with these. I used GAF when I built my pole barn, and those were fine, but these are pretty cool. The shingle itself is actually 42 inches long instead of the typical like 38, 39. and it's got a 6-inch exposure, meaning each course covers 6 inches instead of the typical 5 and a fraction. So it just takes less of these to cover a roof. So it's nice because you're just handling less shingles. And also the glue is on the top side, which I like. I found that when I was doing the pole barn with the GAF shingle, I wanted to kind of open a pack of shingles and start laying them out, but the glue on the back side of the shingle was melting to the roof deck as I was laying it out, so you couldn't really do that. So these you can kind of like throw around the roof deck and leave them up there, even if it's sunny out. And then the other thing I really like cutting architectural shingles is probably my least favorite thing to do ever. But you can see I've got my cuts laid out here. It's what I'm doing right now as I'm waiting for the roof deck to dry. So it's a 42 long shingle. So I'm cutting at 36, 30, and 24. That'll be, you know, your first course is a full shingle, and then the next 3 are these cuts. But then the super cool part is that the waste from each one of these cuts ends up being the 3 courses after that. So you actually get 6 courses for 3 cuts. If you count the full one that you're starting with, it's 7 courses, and there's no waste at all that way. You're not wasting the cut end. So I'm going to cut a few of these and show you how that kind of lays out. All right, so these are the 3 that I cut, and then these are the 3 pieces that would typically be waste with any other shingle, but what you see is they fit perfectly for the next 3 courses. The roof never dried. I felt like I needed to still get something done today. So I got these stacked up here. It's Friday night, maybe like 6 o'clock right now. It's gonna rain tomorrow. It's gonna snow Sunday. And then I've got a day job to work Monday through Friday. So I don't know when this is gonna get done, but luckily it's dried in. So it can wait. So it's Wednesday now. I started putting these shingles on Saturday, and it has either rained or snowed every day since then. So it's been a little bit at a time. It's been during lunch and after work. Sometimes I'll put a spotlight on and work out here after dark. But today I got lucky. It's like 65 degrees today. So let me show you a few things here. I've got my stair-step pattern going on over here. I am really happy with how everything lined up on this step out. I just have to trim that shingle. So you can see the way that I'm nailing these with this 5 nail pattern. It leaves me at every seam here. I'm nowhere close to a nail. You see that next nail is all the way in here. So I won't get any nail leaks at my seams. So I'm really happy with that. You can see I have the starter shingles along the edge here. We'll walk over here and I'll show you the rake that I started at. You can see how nice the cut edge turned out on this rake. Really nice edge there. And then the other thing, I did snap a few lines to start out with to kind of get me past this step, but then I really haven't snapped any lines since the plumbing vent. And you can see I'm nice and straight all the way across. So I'm going to try to keep these rows as straight as I can until I get to the end. And then this was my first time ever flashing a plumbing vent, because I don't have a plumbing vent on that building back there. And I am pretty happy with how this turned out here. Kind of see my cut around that. Just treated it like a shingle. I don't have any nails in the bottom here that would be exposed like the way my old flashing was. I had nails down here that had some sealer on them. All right, so here's where it gets tricky on the edge, and I'll show you what I'm doing here. I learned this from Zach over at Veteran Roofing, along with a lot of other stuff on this roof. So I'm about to nail in this piece. You can see it kind of overhangs the edge a little bit here, no big deal. But in order to know where the nails are going to go on this piece, I need to understand where the next piece is going to line up. And I can't use, see, this is a full shingle. I won't be able to use this full shingle because it doesn't get me all the way to the edge, and I don't want to put just a sliver on the edge. So I've got to section in about a foot long piece to get me where I need to be. And when I go to put this piece in, I don't want it to line up with any of the nails that I'm going to put in here. So if I take a look at this piece, I can see the seam is going to be there. So I'm going to nail probably 1, 2, and then 3, 4, 5, and just make sure I miss the seam here. Really happy with this nailer, by the way, this Bostitch nailer. See how it's got the depth set. It really doesn't deform the head of the nails. Anyway, now I'm going to bring this piece down. See, I won't have a nail at that seam. But you don't really know until you kind of line everything up like that. So everything along this edge is going to take a little bit longer because you've got to work that out. So we're working on the eave edge here, getting these starter shingles on, and I just wanted to show these starter shingles are not the same length as these 42-inch shingles, and so every once in a while the stagger will line up such that it's going to fall on a seam, and I don't want those seams to line up. So you can see I'm actually laying out the pattern of the shingle on top of the starter shingles just to make sure, as I'm nailing the starter shingle in, at no point do I get a nail under where this seam is going to go. And now, since this one's going to line up, I'm actually going to cut this starter shingle down, maybe cut a third off of it so I can keep my stagger going and never get a nail, never get seams that line up, and then never get a nail under the seam of the shingle. Alright, so a little update here. That time lapse you just saw was us working until about 6 p.m. last night, until it got dark. I really wanted to get on a roll and get more of this done, but I got hung up on this chimney flashing here, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. But the way it was stacking up, it was going to put a seam right where my nail line, like my nails were in the flashing, and I didn't like that, so I had to create some stagger. And then once I did that, I really wanted to get my stair step pattern back so it wouldn't screw up my nailing pattern on one of the rows. And I'm happy with it. The only spot I messed up, I'll show you. I put a little flag here to remind myself to come back. Oh, it must be on the other side. I did get a nail. I got a nail really close to this seam here. So I'm going to come back and put some sealer just on that nail head so that no water gets in there. So just stuffing my little reminder in there. It is 36 degrees right now. I'm really running out of days where it's going to be nice weather to be doing this. My plan today was actually, I've got about 10 square left. I was going to try to just knock this out today. Travis said he would come back over and throw shingles for me. And I just looked at the weather, and it's supposed to snow right now, and it's supposed to rain in a couple hours. So we'll see what we can get done. I don't know if I showed this side yet, so I got this side completely done. I did most of this side by myself. I did have help with the first few bundles, which was nice, but you know, just took a really long time to get that side done because of all the weather issues. So if I got a solid day to work on the backside, I feel like I could do it. But we'll see how far I get done today. Shelby's out here in her little coat. It's a struggle because she really wants to be out here with me when I'm doing this. She wants to keep an eye on my safety, but she gets so damn cold when it's below like 40-50 degrees out. So I got to put her inside in a little bit here. Well, it's 2 o'clock now, and I don't know if you can see it on video, but it's kind of like freezing rain, snow freezing rain. It's getting a little slippery up here, so I'm gonna call it for now. We'll see if it dries up enough later for me to come back out, but I did get to the end, so I'm happy with that. And I started looking down these rows. These rows look really straight to me, so I'm happy with that. But I will probably snap a few lines right at the end here, because that's kind of where it's easy to start kind of curving up or curving down. Shelby is like, dude, let's go inside. Are you cold? Yeah. Let's go get warm. Come on. Come on. Alright, so you can see I've got both sides of the roof all shingled here. I'm really happy with how straight my rows came out. You will see at the end here, it does veer off just a little bit down on this end. You can kind of see that, but no big deal. Let me show you what's going on with these ridge vents though. So I've got my shingles cut back, you can see, and then I've got the underlayment exposed, and in a minute here I'll go ahead and cut that underlayment out, so that'll be an open hole right into the attic where it vents from. But you can see this ridge cap, or sorry, this ridge vent, you know, it's important to have it shingled high enough so that it covers the nailing line on both these shingles on either side. It's going to cover that nailing line, as you can see, but if you look in there, in my opinion, wind-driven rain could still blow in there and get to these nails. So maybe it's overkill, but I'm actually going to take these strips that I cut off up there and I'm going to nail them here on my, just to cover my nailing line and get the nails up a little higher, just so I don't have to worry about any of that wind-driven rain. So I'm going to do that all the way across, and then I'll be ready to install my ridge vent here. So I've actually decided to stop for the day. I got the ridge vent on, as you can see, and started putting my ridge caps on. But these, it's 37 degrees outside, and these are feeling like when I bend them over the peak, they're starting to crack a little bit. So even though I hauled these 3 bundles up here, I'm actually going to haul them back down and put them inside the house overnight, try to get them to warm up a little bit. And tomorrow it's supposed to be a high of 50, so hopefully tomorrow they'll want to go on there. Just don't want to damage them as I'm putting them on. So I did run my chalk line. I'm running out of chalk, and so the chalk line wouldn't make a good line. So I just attached the chalk line with a nail down there, and I ran my ridge vent up against that to make sure it's nice and straight. It's not going to be perfect, but I would like it to look pretty good from the road. So the other thing on the end here, you can see my vent opening, and this house, when you include the garage space, which I wanted to vent that because I will be putting a drywall ceiling in the garage and insulating above that. So with that, this house is about 1,600 square feet of attic space that needs to be vented, and you need 1 square foot of venting per 150 square feet of attic space. So at 1,600 square feet, I need roughly like 10 or 11 square feet of opening. And this vent kind of ranges, but I didn't, it's not exact, but it ranges between 1 inch or 2. At 1 inch, it would give me 5 square feet, and at 2 inches, it gives me 10. It's probably closer to 2 inches most of the way. So call it 10 square feet of venting just in the top here. And then I need the same thing down at the soffits. So all said and done, I'll probably have between 15 and 20 square foot of vent opening on this house. And I only need 10. So it'll be really nicely vented. Alright, so I got my ridge caps all installed here. They bent a lot easier today after sitting in the house overnight. Came out really straight, so I'm happy with that. And I got my pipes, my vent pipes painted. Just wanted to add a little touch there. And I got my furnace pipe sealed up as well. So this roof is officially done. Alright, so here's what it looks like from the front. I'm going to call it done for this video. You know, I'm obviously going to go get some trim for the fascia, and I still have to cut the soffits and redo the vinyl trim on the soffits as well, but I just wanted to show the roof in this video. And just for reference, we started this project on October 30th and it's now November 24th, so it took almost a month to do this project, but I would estimate I probably saved about $10,000 doing this myself. So I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. Thanks for watching.